Hello， 大家好，我是利恩。哎呀，今天我要带大家看一个大家绝对会感兴趣的 Charlie Kirk 在校园的另外一场关于 DEI 的辩论。这个 DEI 呢，我们还是简单再介绍一下，之前的影片也有提过。美国的 DEI 其实是由美国民主党在 Joe Biden 执政的时候所推行的一项政策，个别代表的多元、公平、包容。那看起来好像很美好，对吧？其实说白了，DEI 就是一种种族配额主义，什么意思呢？就是说 DEI 标榜的，不管是在政府公部门或者是私人企业内，都应该为了，好比说有色人种，有一定程度的配额，好比说女性也就一定要保障几名，那黑人一定也要保障多少比例。
今天讨的就是一个公平。
美国过去因为 DEI 我们知道就是说已经有太多的纰漏，层出不穷的发生。像我们之前讲的这个加州大火的事件，就有严重的因为加州政府长期的 DEI 政策，而导致重要的政府职位呢，被为了种族配合放宽了很多所谓资格条件的问题，让这些不够资格的人呢来升任重要的职位。
拜托几个嘞！
那我们就今天来好好来看 Charlie Kirk 这样辩论，并且我会在当中适时的做一点补充讲解。Let's go。
Yeah, so last year you said something about DEI, unqualified black pilots. You see a pilot on a black pilot. Don't you think it was an irresponsible statement suggesting that maybe these pilots aren't qualified or unqualified?
No. But I'll tell you exactly what I said and why I said it.
Okay, go ahead.
I said the pretext. I went through a whole windup. I said United Airlines is saying that they want 40% of all their pilots to be people of color or women. We have learned that we have relaxed standards anytime that we try to reach racial quotas. Anytime we reach racial quotas, we relax the standards. Standards for air traffic control, professors, or college admissions. Therefore, when it comes to pilots or surgeons, if I see somebody who is black, as I said on the show, I'm going to hope that person is qualified. That's what I said, which of course is legitimate, because they're begging the question, we're not hiring based on merit anymore. We're hiring based on race.
Now,
So when you see a black pilot, you wonder, boy, is that person there because they earned it or because they were placed there? That's what DEI does. It makes you ask questions you otherwise would not ask.
so the airline industry is going to take an unqualified person just based off diversity.
Underqualified, not
correction, yeah.
Underqualified.
Unqualified, whatever, uncertified, and then put them in a cockpit and risk people's lives?
Those are two different things. Under and un are two different things.
好，这边我字幕中文的翻译有一点不精准，最主要英文讲的 underqualified 跟 unqualified 这两个呢是有一些差别的。underqualified 就是说它是在合格之下，那并不是说 unqualified 就是完全的不够格。好，大家这样了解意思。所以 underqualified 呢，并不是说你完全的没有资格，完全的不合格，而是说你还不太达到合格的标准。简单的比喻就像什么？像 underqualified 就有点像是这个还不到师傅程度的学徒，但是呢，他总有基本的一些技巧，或者说这个职业专业的一些技能，可是他的能力并不是达到最完美的，或者说最标准的。那 unqualified 呢，就可以说就是完全门外汉了，就是完全不具备这个所谓相关技能的资格，是这个的差别。我们怎么好像变成英语教学节目了？好，继续看啊。
Of course, United Airlines will not take someone off the side of the street and put them into a pilot. But in order to reach a 40% goal, they might cut corners. They might accelerate the process in order to reach a goal. We know this through all sorts of DEI examinations and projects over the last 10 years. When you have to choose in life, either excellence or racial quotas will end up being the most important. And both cannot simultaneously exist. It's never happened before.
Okay, so when we talk about DEI, well, who benefits the most? Because black people really don't. It's only like maybe 3 to 4% of black people actually benefit from those programs. So who benefits the most?
I'm not sure your question. I mean, theoretically, if 40% of all pilots end up being black people or people of color.
But that's not. I actually looked it up. It's only like maybe about 6% of pilots
their
are black.
goal is 40%, right? That's the point. It's like that's actually a great point. So they wanted to go from 6% to 40%. And so you have to wonder, boy, you go from 6% to 40%, there's going to be a relaxing of standards.
Okay, I guess the way let me see if I can rephrase this. So, essentially, when you talk about DEI, affirmative action, or anything to that effect,
I'm against all of it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and that would be fine. The thing is that now it's actually, referenced as a slur against, essentially, if you see a black person in a position or minority or whatever, the assumption is that that person is not qualified. When literally, and you have to be qualified in order to even to get in that position.
这边我觉得这个黑人讲得很好啊，对啊 ，DEI 大家现在都把它确实当贬义词。好，但是那是为什么？那是因为本来就是大家认为这样子并没有办法真实的反映你是否足以胜任，或者说你是否足以卓越。好，那没有错啊。如果说今天一个有色人种黑人，他在一个职位上，他被人带有一种质疑、怀疑的眼光的话，这更证明了才要取消 DEI 嘛。如果今天政府没有 DEI 政策的话，那是不是大家会很自然的在任何的场所场合当中看到少数有色人种，不管说是黑人啊，或是墨西哥裔啊，是不是大家反而就没有这个质疑的？他不会像查理克一开始讲的，就是说人们还要多一层留心去怀疑说，这个人会不会可能他是 DEI 保护之下受益者，而他并不真的具备一个专业的资格，所以这就是更要取消 DEI 的重要原因，不是吗？
Well, so let's take college admissions. So this is a great example. At Harvard, we learned because of new revealed documents that black students were having test scores that were 30 to 35% lower than their white counterparts.
Okay.
And so, therefore, if you saw a black kid at Harvard, it's a fact that they were not having the same test standards as their white counterparts.
Still doesn't matter. The kid has to he's got to get through the classes, do the tests, do all the research.
Well, they actually drop out at a greater rate, too. But the point being is just the idea that they were there, number one, took a spot from an otherwise qualified individual that might be white. And they were not there on the same merits. So what we want is the same rules for everybody.
You're making the assumption that they're not qualified in order to get in. In order to even get there,
it's not the assumption. It's the data. So, for example, it's literally at Harvard, you had kids with perfect SAT scores, perfect ACT scores that were white.
So that makes a degree from Harvard worthless then.
Well, you're exactly right. Yeah, actually, Harvard's degree is becoming more worthless because it's more race-based than merit-based. You're exactly right.
Okay, now we talked enough about that. So in the past, you made statements about black privilege. So can you explain that to me and what it is? And
yeah, of course. I mean, it's easier for a black person to get into college than a white person. You get with lower test scores. It's called affirmative action.
Okay, so that's been so college admissions has been affirmative action for college admissions has been struck down.
Thank you. Yeah. So I'll give you another example. What percentage of TV commercials have black people versus white people?
I'm not sure about that, but white people are also in commercials.
About 40. Well, this is important. About 40 to 50% of all network TV commercials have a person of color right now. What percentage of America is a person of color?
At least for black people, I know we're about 13%.
Yeah, it's about 13% of the population, nearly half of all the TV commercials.
White people are still in the commercials.
Yes, but underrepresented as proportional, though. The point being, I can give you another example. Easier to get corporate jobs. There are entire departments that are dedicated to just try and expand racial quotas.
You know what would really have fixed this from the beginning had you not had, all the... So why do we have DEI in the first place? Because this is the problem that creates. So why was DEI necessary in the first place? Why was DEI necessary in the first place? Or at least the government thought it was necessary in the first place.
Why do I think that it was?
No, why would the government?
Do you want my well-intentioned explanation or the?
Whatever you got.
I mean, DEI was obviously about trying to destroy the excellence of the country and elevate racial tribal politics. Okay,
so if you don't have the racism, right? And then you'll need that program. So you eradicate the racism, and that eliminates the need for any kind of program.
No, but if you have excellence, you're going to find the best.
That tries to take people and put them in place because they're minorities.
You want the best in everything. So let me just ask a final question, okay? If you were about to board a United Airlines flight from Tallahassee to Atlanta, and you find out the airline pilot says, "Hey, everybody, I'm a pilot. I was hired because of diversity. Let's have a great flight." Would that make you feel good or not so good?
No, but I know he's still got to be qualified in order to fly that aircraft.
But he said, I was hired because of diversity, and you're like...
You still got to meet the standards in order to get into a cockpit.
Well, again, we know because air traffic controllers and many others, they relax those standards. When you have a surgeon...
You're saying that, but look, you're not. It does not make sense. It's irresponsible. Not only to say that, but to actually put unqualified people in and risk lives.
But we know that's actually happening every day, and that's why it doesn't make sense. But racial quotas end up mattering more than excellence. When I go in for surgery, I want my surgeon to be the best surgeon, and here's where we can agree.
I would agree with that.
We want a merit-based society, not a race-based society.
I say we should have started that way from the beginning. But at any rate, then the last thing, I don't want to hog the mic, but I'll just say this last thing. So you talked about black fathers, absentee, and all this other stuff and everything else. I actually agree. Okay, more fathers in the home and everything else. That's wonderful stuff. The thing is that you also said, and I'm looking at some of your stuff previous, that there's a system in place that actually incentivizes women to make babies without husbands.
It's a
right?
great society.
Take that away.
I agree.
And then that problem essentially goes away.
I agree.
Now, I would ask this question also: what % of black men do you think are abandoning their homes right now?
Well, we know that it's actually 60 to 70%.
Okay, then you'd actually be wrong because the CDC actually submitted a report in 2023 that says 54% of black men don't even have children.
But that's
54%.
Those are two different numbers, man. I'm talking about those that impregnate.
Okay. Most black men are actually producing children within the construct of marriage.
I'm talking
right?
about just the kids.
So you're saying black men are getting married and then leaving their families?
Not getting married. That's the problem. What I'm saying is the data. I'm saying 2 out of 3 black men impregnate women and don't stay with them.
Sir, I'm telling you that 54% of black men, according to the CDC study 2023 National Health Statistics Reports, literally says that 54% don't even have children.
I know that's a complete different stat. Everyone knows what I'm saying and not what you're saying. That's a complete different. That's like a. So what I'm saying is that if you have a black child, which obviously exists for some reason, right? Somebody did something to make that black baby.
Okay.
2 out of 3 times, the dad will not be around. Fact. Done.
All right.
Yeah, it's only out of. Thank you. The statistics are actually out of only those who have kids.
So you got black men who are married also. They're not abandoning their children and families at high rates.
But that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the vast majority of black babies are born out of wedlock with abandoned fathers.
Okay, so let's do this. Now, if that's bad for a black baby,
It's bad for everybody.
So then shouldn't that be your main line then?
It is actually. Everywhere I go, I talk about dads.
When you do it, you kind of focus on black men as if somehow we're the only ones. That's part of that problem.
Well, no, it is a black men abandonment issue, of course. I mean, would you agree that's probably the biggest issue facing black America is lack of dads?
It's one of the issues.
Okay, what is the biggest issue?
I don't know. I haven't kind of thought about that.
I want you to think about it over the next couple of days. We as conservatives believe
because we got a lot of problems. But
the breakdown of family, we believe, is the original sin of what's happening. We think that truth transcends color. It's true for white people, black people, Asians, Hispanics. Final thought.
Okay, fine. Good question. Good conversation. My thing is, when I hear you talk about it, it seems like you're framing it improperly. And then people are here saying that I'm doing it improperly, but, I'm a black man in America. I know something about it.
I'm just offering you grace. I'm not saying that your number is wrong, just saying that it's a statistic that wasn't necessarily relevant to what I was saying. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for talking.
那最后查理克讲的，其实我非常有感哈。作为一个在台湾少数唯一坚定不能说唯一啦，就少数坚定的保守主义者，我的政治立场在台湾目前没有这样的政党的光谱，也就是保守主义。我必须说华人社会的单亲家庭问题其实是远小于美国的。大家知道吗？美国有高达23% 的单亲家庭，那华人社会呢，台湾或者说中国大陆呢，是差不多5到6%，相对好很多。而最可怕的就是美国的23% 的比例为什么这么高？是因为光是黑人自己本身，他们的单亲家庭比例占了70%啊！各位，虽然黑人在全美国只占13% 的人口，可是你想想，这13% 人口，你再去乘以0.7的话，它等于占了全美国的单亲家庭的多少？等于是有10% 这么高。好，所以你就知道说，这个问题其实才是黑人社区、黑人文化很大的主要问题。作为一个基督徒我都相信，只有一个家庭的功能是健全的，就是说一个原子家庭，就是有父亲、有母亲、有孩子，这样的叫做原子家庭的时候，只有这样的功能是健全的时候，一个民族其实它才会有最根本上的一个茁壮力。所以黑人的教育低落、犯罪问题都是缺乏家中有父亲这样的形象。好，那最后 DEI 它的一个相对面是什么呢？也就是所谓唯才主义或者说卓越主义 meritocracy， 也就是说用人唯才跟为了促进好像社会多元融合包容而要刻意有一定比例的种族配额，这两个本质上一定会有冲突。但是民主党选择往种族配额主义这边走的时候，就让我们看到有太多奇奇怪怪糟糕的施政，或者说公司管理，特别像游戏公司、电影公司等等出现的一大堆纰漏。好，那最后呢，我非常推荐我们之前有做一部查理克谈论到为什么 DEI 不符合圣经。那这一部呢，特别推荐给基督徒的弟兄姐妹呢， 我真的强烈推荐，一定要去看，你会觉得超棒的哈。DEI 都能够从圣经上面找到答案，为什么 DEI 是不符合圣经原则的哈？看完这个，哇，会多出一个非常不一样的信仰收获哈。那当然呢，我始终最喜欢的就是能够跟很多在我频道上面的非基督徒朋友的对话，所以你们的每一个留言，我都非常的认真去看。好，那希望大家这一集也能够有收获。我们这边是超级神队友，我们就下部影片再见，拜拜。
Christ alone, our hope now for